Jeremy is on the phone. Good to see him. So, Richard, is everyone here high school, middle school, or it's a mixture?
It looks like a combination.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna just, I'm not big to talk too much about myself. I'll spend a few minutes just kind of giving you my background. We got sports. I understand sports management group. So I spoke to your group a couple years ago live. I don't think any of you were at that. Most of them have already graduated and moved on. But first, I just hope I see some parents on the call too. So just want to hopefully everyone, all you guys and your families are safe and well. That's the most important thing. And listen to your folks when they say wash your hands and do everything else. So we have our 4 adult children, my wife Jane and I, and we're all gathered here in Livingston. So I'll just talk a few minutes, kind of my background, my family's background, how we got into sports, and then the importance of community, the Jewish community especially, and maybe I'll touch a minute on what we're doing in the Jewish community related to the virus, and then I'll open it up to the questions, comments, really more to have a discussion. So similar to Jeremy, I come from a family of Holocaust survivors. My parents and grandparents all survived the Holocaust, and that's maybe for another time, their story. But my father lived out the war in Siberia in a labor camp. My mother was hidden by my grandmother, and she had Christian papers, and they grew up in Lvov, Poland, and they were in the ghetto there, and they escaped the ghetto with Christian papers. They worked on a Polish farm, and my mother and my grandmother lived the war out that way. The woman who owned the farm didn't know they were Jewish. My mother and grandmother had to hide my grandfather under the floorboards of the barn for over 2 years, and that's how they survived the war. So it's a much longer story than that. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Just to know that they were very blessed to be. They were big Zionists, but they immigrated in 1950 to the United States. My parents came to Birmingham, Alabama, because the Jewish community sponsored them to come over from Europe to America. So thanks to the Jewish community, they were able to come to the United States and build a life for themselves and for myself, my siblings, and just like Jeremy's family and other families that survived the Holocaust and that found a home in the United States, many of us were blessed to be able to thrive here. In 1954, my father and my late father and late uncle started a real estate business, home building, apartments, and shopping centers, and like the Halperns and other families in New Jersey, built a lot of projects in New Jersey. And over 60 years later, and through those years, thankfully, it was a very successful business and a growing business. How did we get to sports? I'll do a quick detour to how we got to sports. I know for my parents, sports was a big part of the American, to being American and having a life for their children, just like going to the JC I went to, and having a Jewish education was important. It was also important to be part of society, and one of the great parts of being in the American society is sports. I imagine you're all big sports fans. That's why you're on this call. But we grew up diehard Giants fans, went to all the games. That was our family bonding experience. My father and one of his partners, who was a former college football player, built some homes for some Giant players in the late 50s and early 60s. So we loved everything about sports. It was something we all got excited about. And it was only a real dream that we could ever be involved in the sports business. We were fans, just like you're all fans, and never thought it would be possible that one day we'd be able to be part of that. Fast forward to 2005, and we were fortunate to become investors in the Minnesota Vikings. It was an opportunity that came up. We had no connection to Minnesota, had no connection to the team, and yeah. So
110 maybe.
Yeah. maybe everyone.
Okay. Good. Oh,
The group uh, did not have the funds to complete the closing, so we went ahead and we stepped up to be the front people to own the team. And ever since then, it's been quite a journey. We had, of course, our knowledge as fans, but my brother, myself, my cousin are the three principal ownership and management of the club. The way we're structured, I'm the owner president of the club. We have two really silos of the way the Vikings work, which we constantly coordinate. We have a business team, which is this aspect, but he reports to me. We have general manager Rick Spielman and head coach Mike Zimmer, and they run all the football operations. They also report to me. The way we operate, we meet on a weekly basis. Our senior management, we have someone who runs our sales and marketing. They're responsible for tickets and sponsorship and sales to make sure our fans know what we're about. That's sales and marketing. We have a chief financial officer that does all the accounting and all the financial things like any business. So we have community relations, which is a big part of what we do. I can tell you we're very proud, and something we bring, with the Jewish community. It's very important for us no matter where we are in our lives, and Jeremy's here represents another incredibly philanthropic family. Just always to give back to the community. That's something very important. I hope you all remember this as you go through school and as you become adults, that whatever success you have in life, make sure you give back and take care of the community. That's a really important lesson. It's something very important to us to share with our players and our coaches. We're very proud that all 53 of our players do community service. Their days off are typically on Tuesdays. We have our games on Sunday. Mondays are meetings to go over the tape, and Tuesday's the day off. They do community work. And then Wednesday through Saturday, they get ready for the games. So, in fact, just through this virus crisis, a lot of our players, you might know, Anthony Barr, Adam Thielen, Chad Greenway, even our alumni, they do a lot of things with feeding people in the Minnesota area through different food programs, different scholarships. Anthony Barr, for instance, has a Raise the Bar Foundation. A lot of our players have their own foundations. And we as ownership, we just committed $250,000 towards the Minnesota community to help with the virus and the different organizations dealing with that. And the same thing we're going to do, and we're doing here in New Jersey through our Jewish Federation and other charities. Just a brief word on what's going on with the virus. I'm not sure if Richard mentioned it, but I'm very privileged to be the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Jewish Federations of North America. We live in the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West, and that's one of 146 federations around the country. And we've spent a lot of time the last 2 weeks there's Congress, that there's now billions of dollars available on profits, things like the Kushner School or JEC or Golda Ak Academy or our JCC's day camps. A lot of our Jewish institutions are under a lot of pressure. And so we're proud that we have a bill, and we're advising a lot of organizations how to get the money to help them survive through this crisis. I'm just touching a little bit on a lot of areas, Richard. I don't know what your students want to talk about. That's kind of an overview of who I am. Again, I'm very proud of the fact, very honored to be part of the sports business. Those of you thinking about one day becoming in the sports business, it's a very competitive business. The only advice I'd give you is if you're fortunate to be exposed to the sports business, make sure you're eager to do whatever you're asked to do because it's a very selective group of people that are involved. We're privileged that we have the ability to be stewards of a great franchise, and I'm happy to talk about the virus and how it affects sports. It's going to have a tremendous impact. We're still working through. We're not sure what that's going to look like. I know the draft is going on in 3 weeks rather. and we're preparing accordingly. We have all our facilities are shut down. So for instance, the Vikings, we had to set up a conference room in a local, as in Minnesota, like New Jersey, there's a stay-at-home order. So our GM and our head scout are going to have to stay in a hotel for 3 weeks and work out of a conference room. So there's a lot of changing things. You as young people going through something like this, I think for all of us, even the parents on the call, it's something we've all experienced different things, the 9/11s, the banking and economic things, but this one is affecting every single person on the planet in some way. And I hope you take lessons out of all this. I know one of the lessons I have is to really appreciate what I have, my family, my friends, and just our health. And we have to really be grateful. No matter where we are, I think I'm safe to say that all of us on this call, all of you young people particularly, are in a better situation than unfortunately a lot of people are. So that's really what I got to say. I know really I want to just have discussion and hear what you guys are thinking about. If you want to ask about any players or any football or bigger things, whatever you want on your mind, I'm happy to open up the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. It looks like we have around 75 or so people on this Zoom session. And I think the best way to work this, if anybody has a question, maybe you could send a quick chat to me saying, I have a question, and I'll call on you. Before I see
a question there. I'm going to answer that one. How did we get those to the Super Bowl? Sound good?
Sure.
That was the whole process. We got the Super Bowl in 2000 and I've lost track. 2018, February 4th, 2018. That was Super Bowl 52. The way the Super Bowl works is that there are 32 owners, and every team has a vote on where the location is. And this is how it was done back then. And we probably started preparing for the Super Bowl in 2016. Once we got, we built a new stadium, the one that you see behind me, US Bank Stadium. We're very proud of it. We think it's the best facility in the world, and it's really an exciting place. Hopefully, if you're ever in Minnesota, let me know. Love to host you for a tour or have you at a game. There's a lot of lobbying that goes on. So what happened was US Bank was Richard Davis, who was the chairman at the time. He was the host, one of 3 chair people for the host committee. They raised about $50 million from the business community in Minnesota.
Wow.
And that, along with our stadium, was part of how we lobbied the other owners. I had to actually go and call every owner and say, we'd like your vote. We think it'd be a great location. The state of Minnesota, the city of Minneapolis, put up $450 million, which was a little under half of the cost of our $1.1 billion stadium. So part of it is saying thank you to that community that they stepped up and invested in the NFL and the stadium. So part of that thank you was to host the Super Bowl. So we were fortunate. We competed against, I think, New Orleans and Indianapolis, and we were selected to get the Super Bowl. They do it a little bit differently now, where the staff kind of does a lot of the legwork ahead of time. So it's kind of not as much arm twisting and lobbying as it was even a few years ago. But I think the next 5 or 6 now have been selected because it takes a lot of work. We had over 10,000 volunteers that worked, and we spent 3 years planning for the Super Bowl, and we were really excited about it. We were embracing the fact that we were an indoor building, but we were in a cold weather environment, and people had a lot of fun. We did a lot of snow events and cool things, and that's how we hosted the Super Bowl.
Okay, great. I see that Rebecca Hinden is on the call. She wanted to just say hello from the Metro West Jewish Federation. Rebecca?
Well, technically I'm in my closet, which is where I hide that my children don't find me. So I'm a parent of, I'm a Kushner parent and also the director of the Day School Initiative at the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West. And I wanted to just express a tremendous thanks to you and your family on behalf of our community. We are, in addition to just something like this where you're sharing your time with us. What you've done for our community is incredible, remarkable. The Kushner community, the Greater Metro West community, we're just so grateful. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Rebecca. I will say this, and I say it wherever I can get a chance. What you do, and the kids should know. I mean, some of your parents work in the community, and I can tell you the people that are professionals in the schools, in the JCCs, at the camps, what they're doing now and dealing with everything that's going on. You read about of course, the doctors and the nurses and the healthcare workers and the first responders, which are really unbelievable, and they should be commended, and they're our heroes. But I will tell you, for the Jewish community, people like you, Rebecca, and our professionals are really responding, and our first responders for our Jewish community. So, kol hakavod to you. Thank you for saying that. That's very nice. But you know, we have to get through this because, and I'm confident we will. You know, we always do together and collectively get through these things, and that's how we've always done it as a people. So I'm going to switch over to Stefan Diggs here on a lighter note. I see some questions about him.
Okay.
I see favorite memories, owner of the Vikings. I would probably say the miracle catch probably was right up there. You know, we've had 3 playoff wins in our 15 seasons, which is probably a little above average for the league, but not enough. Our goal is to win Super Bowls. But those of you who do or don't know, we won a playoff game in 2017 with probably one of the greatest plays. I think it was voted in the top 10 of greatest plays in NFL history. So being there with my family and fans and just thinking you were down and out and just the thrill of sports and that was probably my favorite moment. There've been a lot of favorite memories, but I think just that's what's exciting to us about the NFL is it's really the ultimate team sport, and that's why I love it so much, because when we lose together, and when we win, we win together. And we can't win without every single person in the organization rowing the boat together. Do I think the NFL draft should be moved to a later date? You know, at first I thought maybe not. You know, why are we doing this with everything going on? But I've come around to, first of all, if we can do it safely with technology, doing it with social distancing, which I think we're going to accomplish. There are a lot of challenges. Doctors can't do physicals. We can't do the normal interviewing and in-person kind of meetings that we normally have with the draft picks. For instance, we normally host, every team's allowed to bring 30 players prospective to their facilities. We call it our top 30 dinner. We have to cancel that, things like that, where our scouts get another look at guys. But I do think that, you know, you all feel it. There's no sports on TV. We're watching reruns, which are fun for a while, but that gets stale too. And hopefully it'll be an opportunity. I know we did some planning yesterday about the draft. There are going to be some exciting things on TV, like the way, I don't know if you saw Sunday night, there was an Elton John concert related to the virus. And I think, you know, there are ways maybe football can help give people a little bit of a bright moment and all this kind of drudgery and being indoors and cooped up. And so I think I'm coming around to agreeing with the commissioner and others that feel this could be an opportunity for us to really play a moment and to help the country get through this and be a source of a little bit of lightheartedness in all of this. We'll see how it goes in the next 3 weeks, but I know we're planning towards it.
See,
Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, Kirk Cousins, yeah.
Is going to lead us to a Super Bowl. Yes, that's the answer.
Bezalel, did you have a question?
Question. First, thank you so much for taking your time out to speak with us. How do you manage your time with all these different great organizations you're part of?
Well, I think the easiest thing to say is, I mean, I'm blessed with a lot of support. First and foremost, my family, my wife, my kids, they're very supportive, and they let me travel or do different things. I have a lot of support in a family business. I know Jeremy can attest to it. There's when you're involved in big business or big operations, the fact if everyone is not pulling together and cooperating, it doesn't work. So I'm fortunate to have the kind of support that allows me to do that, and that's really the short answer. And technology helps a lot. And again, it's still about making sure, like for instance, the Jewish Federations of North America. The main thing I did as a board chair, it's a volunteer position, but we had a transition of hiring a new CEO. And I spent a lot of time last year to hire Eric Fingerhut. He's a former congressman. He used to run Hillel. And I think and he's been amazing. So I think a lot of these positions, it's about finding the right people. I mean, even the football was much more hands-on years ago. Now I'm still hands-on, but I feel real good about our coach and GM. We didn't always have that stability. And that's when you're in trouble, when you don't have the right people. And I'm fortunate to be surrounded by right people. And my biggest role is to make sure that the right people are in the right places. So that's kind of how I'm able to juggle things, is, I be lucky and fortunate to have the right people.
I see there's some other questions. If you could see the one after the fantasy football one. I'm sorry, no, that's the next one. Do you play fantasy football?
I do not. There's actually, if I did, I would not be able to play it for any kind of money. There's all kinds of rules where myself and even my own kids, I think there's a limit of $50 or $100 that you can bet on fantasy football, because the league wants to make sure that there's no conflicts or scenarios that could present conflicts with gambling and otherwise. So
There's another question there. You want to read that, or are there any stories?
Yeah, any stories or scenarios of how as a Jew you were able to make a Kiddush Hashem? One thing I'm proud of, again, this goes to the players and ties in with my background and some of the players' backgrounds. So we did a trip last year with an organization in Minnesota. And they bring 50 underprivileged high school kids to Washington every year. And we kind of co-opted that trip a little bit, where most of them are minority kids from seriously underprivileged backgrounds. Some of the kids had never traveled outside their communities or ever went on an airplane. And they went to go to Washington. They go to the African American History Museum. If none of you have ever been there, it's really a fantastic trip. So I urge you, when you have the chance to go there. But 2 blocks away is the Holocaust Museum, the U.S. Holocaust Museum. So we decided to bring some of our players over to the Holocaust Museum. And I thought it was a very moving moment. We talked to the kids about tolerance and going to both museums and the players even. I shared, my story, my parents' story inside the Holocaust Museum, and then they got to go see the history. Some knew a little bit of it. Most didn't know much about it. You'd be amazed how limited the knowledge of a lot of Americans are about even the things we take for granted, like the history of the Holocaust. So we're going to continue that trip every year. We were going to plan to do it actually in 3 weeks. We had to postpone this trip, obviously. But that's something we want to do. And ultimately, I'd like to bring our players to Israel. I know, for instance, Kirk Cousins, he's a huge fan of Israel. His father's an evangelical minister, and he went to spend a semester in high school in Israel. So I've talked to him about it, and he's very, very into Israel. We just signed a new nose tackle. His name is Michael Pierce. He's on the Baltimore Ravens, and if you look him up, he's a huge Israel fan. He has the Israeli flag on his cleats.
Huh.
You should look those up. It's really cool. Really great guy. He's going to be a big part of our team. And so look him up, Michael Pierce. And I'm looking forward to go with him to Israel too one day soon. Stefan Diggs has been traded to Buffalo. How are you going to approach marketing your team, being he was the face of the franchise from the Miracle? Well, it's in the eye of the beholder. I mean, we're still a big believer in being a team. And yes, he was a big part of our team, and we love Stefan, and he was great. But we also got a tremendous amount of picks, and we have 12 draft picks coming up in 3 weeks. And the nature of the NFL is the average cycle of a player is 3.5 years, and we're always getting younger, and we have a lot of faces to our franchise. So Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Harrison Smith, Anthony Barr, Michael Pierce. We have a lot of players that are going to represent us well, and it's still all about the team. So the face of our franchise is a shofar on our helmet. So the CBA negotiations, I'm going to have to cut it short here in a few minutes, if that's all right. I'm going to try to get to as many questions as I can. Well, the CBA negotiations was a long working process. Commissioner Goodell and our management council and the players union spent almost a year negotiating it. And actually, the final vote with the players happened right in that week when the virus started to hit the news in a serious way. So I think it's going to be, in the long run, 10 years of labor peace like we had in the last CBA leads to a lot of growth. You need that kind of stability. Allows our sponsors, our networks to feel comfortable that there's a strong future. Obviously, things have changed dramatically with the virus. We don't know what's going to happen, how our games are going to unfold, when our season starts, and what we're going to do. And I know the NBA and the basketball and baseball and soccer are working through it right now, and hockey. So leader of the Vikings is Coach Zimmer. Which player? We have a lot of leaders. We have a veteran council of 8-10 players that talk to the coach, but it's hard to pinpoint. But guys like Anthony Barr or Kirk Cousins or Kyle Rudolph, sometimes the best player is also a leader. Dalvin Cook's a phenomenal example. So we have a lot of leaders in a lot of areas. When a player gets suspended, how does the team handle the situation? Well, typically the suspensions come down from the league. We try to make sure our players are safe, that they don't do anything stupid when they're outside the building. But there's only so much we can control. They're adults. But I know we make sure when we draft players, and this is also dies back to the kind of values we want to be community-minded. There's 70, 80 players that we won't draft no matter what. We put red dots on their cards, and we want to have the kind of players that we understand that not everyone's a choir boy, but we want to make sure that the kind of players that our community can feel proud to that they're on the Minnesota Vikings. Anthony Barr signing, he had initially thought he was going to the Jets, but that's the kind of culture we're developing in Minnesota with our coach, our facilities, making sure everything's first class. And I think that was one of the first times we had one of our players say, you know what, I'd rather, and he made a lot of money. He's making a lot of money, but he might have left a couple $1 million on the table to come to Minnesota, but he wanted to be in a situation where he could thrive, he could grow his game, and he could be around people he loves. So yes, we're planning to address the secondary. I don't have any answers today, but we're working hard on our draft and in the free agency. Minnesota was 18th in attendance last year. The virus. Okay. A little misleading to say we're 18th in attendance. We have one of the smaller stadiums in the NFL at 66,000. The fact is we're top in ticket sales. We have almost 100% season ticket loyalty. But you're right. Team attendance and all sports, how are people going to feel going back to stadiums with 70,000 people? So we'll see how these other sports and how society reacts and coming back from the virus. And there might be, I saw some things on the news today that NBA's poking around having NBA teams play in one location in empty arenas and televising it. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if that's a real thought or it's just speculation in the media. But, the NFL, we're going to have to come around to these decisions pretty soon. So I hope I got a little bit to each of your questions.
Yes.
I just tell you, sports is a great business if you ever have an opportunity. First, though, do well in school and listen to your parents and do what you got to do. Listen to your teachers.
Yes. Mark, I can't thank you enough for today, for your time. I wish you the best of health. First of all, thank you for doing everything that you do on behalf of the Jewish people, for people in general, humanity. I wish you the best of health during this very challenging time. And we look forward to seeing you again soon, hopefully in person next time. But this was really great. This was a real honor for us.
Good. Stay upbeat and keep happy and well. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you for everybody coming today.